Hey guys, welcome to episode 50 of Reconstructing Cave Story. In this episode, we're going to be working more on our gun experience HUD, working on the flash, fill, and max portions of it. And this is our problem statement from the last episode. You can look at it again if you like. You can watch the video again if you like. Maybe that's fun for you. But let's look at our solution for this episode. So before we take care of fill, and we'll start with flash, but before we take care of fill, we're going to want to work on our varying width sprite, because right now it takes in a set width of units of pixel, and instead I'd like it to just set a fractional width, so it's like some percentage of a maximum width. And this will just make calculations a lot easier, and we'll be able to clean up our player health sprite, or our player health object quite a bit once we change this to set fractional width instead of set width in pixel units. So that's something we're going to do before we take care of the fill. But we're going to start with flash first. So, and again, these are just all the sprite positions. They're all the same width and height because they all take up, they're all in that text box .bitmap, and they all just kind of take up that same area as the experience bar width, or experience bar, that we implemented in the last episode. So yeah, let's start with our flash sprite, which is going to be flashing at around 800 milliseconds, and then I think the period is about 40 milliseconds, but I'll check before we get started. So let's get started. So I will open up gun experience.h and cc, or gun experience HUD.h and .cc, and let's add another sprite. This is going to be our flash sprite, and let's implement this. Let's work on the constants first. It's going to have the same draw x as our experience bar, so I'm not going to make another constant for that. But I will make constants for the rest of these. And let me just copy this over from here so I don't have to think about it so much or remember it. So let's start with our k flash x, which is going to be 5 times k half tile. Put these after units of game. Then we have units of tile for k flash y, which is going to be 5 tile units. And then width and height are going to be our experience bar width and height. And I won't make more constants for that either. We'll just use those because they already exist. So now let's initialize it. Flash sprite graphics, k sprite name, units game to pixel for the first one, and it's going to be flash x. So, and then units tile to pixel for flash y. And then the same width and height as our experience bar. Ooh, I should call that k flash source x. So now let's create our 2 time elements. So it's going to be const units of millisecond for k flash time, which is going to be 800 milliseconds, and our flash period, which is going to be 40 milliseconds, I decided just now. So now let's draw this, and we're going to draw it on top of everything, on top of our experience bar. So let's do flash sprite.draw. Just going to make sure that it's all drawing correctly. Let's do graphics, k experience bar draw x, and k draw y. So let's see how this looks, just to make sure we got the right sprite in place, and then we'll make it flash. So yeah, you can see it the flash covers the whole thing, and it is good. So now let's create our timer. Flash timer. Ooh, it might be a good idea to combine, because I'm doing a lot of flashing sprites. It might be a good idea to combine at some point a sprite and a timer so that I don't have to do so much manual labor. So I'll think about that in the future, but for now I'm just going to keep going. So flash timer. Ooh, and also we need to include timer up here. I just QRST. Timer's happy. Let's initialize it. So flash timer, giving it our expiration time, which is k flash time, and I'm all right with it defaulting to false because I don't want it to start active. I want to activate it myself. And then let's go down here. So if flash timer dot active, so if it's active, and we can do our special dealio where we take our flash timer dot current time, divide it by our k flash period, and if that is equal to 0, then we draw. Otherwise we don't draw it. So let's go in our game class and create a situation where this would actually happen so that we can see it in action. So let's create another method inside of our gun experience HUD first, which will activate the flash. So let's say void activate flash, and it'll just reset our flash timer. So flash timer dot reset, and then we can call this in our game CC. And this activate flash is permanent, but our calling it is temporary because, you know, I'm just using it to test it. So let's say if how about if we fire our gun, then our experience bar flashes. How about that? So gun HUD activate flash. So I'll build and run just to make sure our flash is working and only lasts 800 milliseconds or thereabouts. So I don't think it's lasting for 800 milliseconds, so maybe I'm doing it wrong. Flash timer dot reset. Oops, this should be modulo k flash period. No. Divided by k flash period modulo 2. See, this is why I need to make another class for this, so I don't make silly mistakes like this. Okay. Let's see it again. Yeah, much better. Okay, so that's a good looking flash, and I'm happy with that flash effect. So let's go into our game CC class, and actually we'll leave it until we're done with all the other stuff. But yeah, so what's coming up next is let's work on our VaryingWidthSprite. So right now the only place we're using it is in our health HUD. So I'm going to open up our health HUD and look at that and see how we can fix it. And actually I already know how I'm going to fix it, but I'll just tell you guys about it. So right now it's, where are we drawing it? Yeah, so we're drawing our damage fill. We're calculating an offset and drawing it at that offset and only drawing a portion of the fill, like maybe the damage portion of the fill. So like our damage fill sprite, if you remember, which is, let me just build and run and show you guys again. So our damage fill sprite is the white part of the, the white part that appears that shows you how much damage you're taking. So right now we're setting it to be the size of damage. And another way of doing this is, instead of doing this, we could draw our damage fill sprite behind our health fill sprite and then just draw our damage fill sprite to be the size of our current health so that we don't have to draw it at an offset. So let me show you what I mean, and then we'll work from there. So first thing I'm doing is I'm taking our health fill sprite and moving it after our damage fill sprite. The next thing I'm going to do is get rid of this fill offset, so we'll be just drawing at our k health fill x. Okay, so we're good there, right? Nothing too crazy, except now we need to change the size of our damage fill sprite to be our current health. And it's almost the same thing, except, I mean, it'll look identical. The only difference is like more of the damage fill sprite is being drawn. You just can't see it because it's now just being covered up. So you can see it creates the same effect, and it's in this upper left, like the damage fill still looks like it's taking up the same amount of space, but we're just calculating it differently. So that's the first thing I'm going to do when we're changing it. So now what I want to be able to do is just pass in, instead of set width, just be able to call set percentage width. I know I said fractional, but I just changed my mind to percentage because that's more accurate. And instead of doing calling this fill offset, I would do something like call current health minus damage, convert that to a float, and then divide that by the max health. So this is ideally what I would want to do and what we are going to work towards. So I'll change that here too. So this will now give us a percentage, and then our varying width sprite will then know how wide to make the sprite based on this. So let's get rid of that parenthesis too. So then we could get rid of our fill offset and then go into our player class and get rid of it there too. Fill offset right here, because we don't need it anymore. Our varying width sprite will be doing the work. So let's actually implement this set percentage width. And to do this, I'll open up VaryingWidthSprite.h. And the other thing we're going to need is a max width, not just the initial width. So I'm also going to take that in. So units of pixel for, I'll do the max width first because I think that makes a little more sense. To me, it makes more sense. So if it doesn't make more sense to you, then deal with it. So private const units of pixel to store our max width. Instead of having set width, we'll set percentage width. And instead of taking in a width, we'll take in a float percentage. Percentage is 0 to 1 inclusive. I could add an assertion, but I'm pretty sure I won't call it wrong. No, you know what? I'm just going to add an assertion. That was a silly thing to say. Assert percentage is greater than or equal to 0, and percentage is less than or equal to 1.0f. And then instead of setting it to be equal to the width, we set it to be a percentage of the max width. So let's do, we'll need to cast this unsigned int percentage of the max width. Yeah. How do you like that? I like that. Except I want assert to be up here and with brackets. Now all we need to do is in our player health pass in our max width before our initial width. So for here, it's going to just be the k max fill width. And the same thing for our damage fill sprite, k max fill width. So let's make sure that this is all working, hooked up correctly. It's not, because I forgot to initialize our max width private variable. So I'll call max width with max width after we make our sprite constructor call. So build and run that, and argument conversion from HP to float. units of HP to float. Ooh, let's convert this to a float first. That would be bad. Alright, so that's all we need. And then just check to make sure everything still looks good. And I'm quite happy with how this looks. Yes, I think it looks great. Okay. So now we fixed our varying width sprite, we can move on to using or creating our fill sprite. And it'll be much easier now.